Thanks for listening to eCommerce Australia. A quick note to let you guys know I run my own e-commerce SEO agency in Melbourne, and we'd love to work with you and your brand in growing your organic traffic in 2025. We have a small but select and elite team. Click on the link in the show notes below to start your complimentary free audit. No obligation, just great advice. We'll give you a great overview and some directions for 2025 from a team who cares deeply about your success. Back to the show. All right, so we love having a returning guest on the podcast, and this time it's officially in the capacity of e-commerce founder of a new coffee product called Dosed, but we might squeeze a couple of e-commerce growth questions to him as well. Brendan Gillen, also founder of the e-commerce academy, who are doing amazing things with all of their students and the businesses that they work with. But made a big welcome back to the podcast. I think this is 3 or 4, might be 4.
Yeah, it could be 4. I'm glad. I love being on your podcast. It's great. I love jamming with you and talking about things. So I'm really happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
No, mate, it's great. As I said, on this podcast before, to give Brendan a follow on YouTube. I love following him on YouTube. I learn a lot, and I appreciate all the insights that you share. You're always very generous with your time. But mate, we thought we'd get you on today because you've started up a new brand, and it's really cool. Like, you've built this great community of e-commerce founders who are getting all these awesome results, and you've also built an e-commerce brand not from scratch, but from I think you purchased Fight Gear Direct, did you not?
Yes, yeah. I bought that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is first time starting from 0 to 1 and beyond. So I thought we'd go through that journey, and that might resonate with a lot of the listening audience. And as you grow and the learnings that you've taken, I'm sure people who are listening to this on various parts of their journey will get a lot out of it. Mate, when did you first give thought to a new coffee brand? Take us behind the concept. How did that come about? Were you kind of using ChatGPT, or were you throwing ideas at a whiteboard and trying to come up with kind of the next product for you to start?
Yeah, that is a great question. I actually did start a coffee company brand like 4 years ago. It was called Roast and Grind, and it was like a coffee subscription service, and just tanked. It was no good. So I think it was always in the back of my mind I wanted to start another coffee brand, but I didn't know if it was in this sort of the way it's set up now. And I'll talk through about that in a minute. But
why did it tank? Why do you think you just you didn't have the product market fit was correct, or subscriptions? Yeah.
It was all the wrong things. So okay. Yeah, I suppose, so the reason that didn't fit is like coffee's a really competitive category, and so I'm always of the belief you should have a product and sell something or run a business of a category that that you enjoy, that you don't have to be passionate about it, but you like being part of it. And I love coffee, I always have. And I had a coffee subscription. So I went and looked to try and find some like roasters, and I found a roaster that could do, consignment coffees and, branding some coffee packaging. But I didn't realize how competitive the industry was. And it's really hard to differentiate your brand in the industry. Like, why does someone choose one coffee over another? Definitely there's taste, but if we're running an online business, they can't taste it first and they don't know what it's like. And you have to rely on your brand, your referrals, your associations, anything unique about it. It was really hard to do the difference on that one. Plus, when I wasn't a roaster, it's very hard to buy other people's coffee and make margin out of it. So there was just all the things. It was didn't have a unique value proposition. I didn't have really good supply chain. My margins were terrible. I knew all the tactical e-commerce-y stuff. I just didn't know the branding bit, I think, and the product side of it. So I tried it, didn't work, and then just threw that one out and didn't ever think of going back to coffee because it is a really, really hard category.
Yep, cool. So sorry, I got sidetracked from then, but so you're wanting to start a new brand. You're looking for ideas.
Yep.
Talk us through that.
Yeah. So look, I'm very fortunate because I speak with hundreds and hundreds of e-commerce founders every week. I've always got this itch of I get a bit jealous of them because they have this product they just love and they love bringing it to life, and they use our tactics and strategies to grow their business. And I get really jealous because I've always been an entrepreneur retailer at heart, working in all the large retailers. And I've sort of gone through this phase of having all my own products. Oh, not my own products, but my own e-commerce stores. So the first one I started was selling Apple AirPod cases on eBay. It was my first foray into side hustle culture. And then I started selling colorful earpods, and I was always selling other people's things, maybe white labeling things. And then when I bought Fight Gear Direct, that was other people's brands, and I never really owned a product and a brand. And as we know, that's really tight on margins, your supply chain, you don't control things like that. And so I thought to myself, what's the perfect e-commerce business? And I went through a few different ideas. I'm like, okay, I want something of a product that I'm passionate about. I need something that is consumable because I want to have repeat purchases. I want something that is light and easy to ship and small. And then I want something that is slightly defensible, that's hard for other people to do, right? So that's the anatomy of a really good e-commerce business. So I just kept like going through heaps of different ideas on using that as sort of my like, checklist of like do's and don'ts. And then, I came across, I don't know where I saw it, I think it was in the US or somewhere, type of coffee that I'm like, that's a really unique concept. And it's called a coffee concentrate. Now, it's not a brand new concept. There are coffee concentrates out there, but, and you can get them at, local supermarkets like Coles and Woolies. But the concentrate in the concentrate isn't very big. It's basically just watered down coffee brew in like a bottle. So it's not very good. And they just taste like water and dirt. And I thought there had to be a better way. So basically what I did is that we found a manufacturer, and it took me I spoke to about 10 different companies, and no one could do it. But I knew it was possible because I'd seen it in another country. I'm like, that's absolutely possible. But we did find someone local here in Melbourne, which is great, that can make the coffee in such a way that it makes it, highly concentrated, but retains like 97% of the flavor, and all they use is coffee and water. And so the concept is that we basically liquidify the beans. That's not really what we do, but it's basically turning beans into liquid so that they're not pre-brewed. And all you do is you add water to it, which creates the brewing process, right? So if you think about the other types of coffee you buy right now, when you go to use a cold brew, that's pre-brewed. If you use instant coffee, that is brewed and then dried. If you use a pod, I don't even know what's in a pod, but basically none of them are pure. And so what we did is we've now purified coffee down to liquid bean, and it's like the best, softest tasting flavor you could imagine. It's the closest to bean flavor you could get. So that's where I got there. So I wanted to get something that was consumable, defensible, light and easy to ship, and something that I enjoyed doing, because the idea is if it doesn't work, I'm enjoying the process is sort of the idea that I thought about.
Yeah, perfect. One of the questions I had too, so you mentioned like basically the perfect e-commerce business. Did AOV come into your consideration? Because obviously, that has a smaller AOV than, I guess that's probably pretty typical of consumables in general. But was AOV something that you weren't too worried about if you're going to get repeat purchases?
AOV was something I was definitely worried about. And I suppose it's like, what's my trade-offs? That's what I was trying to think. Like, I can't have everything unless I'm selling like, I don't know, truffles or caviar or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So something like that where you can get a high AOV consumable product, or anyway, there are products out there that might be like that. So absolutely, AOV is probably one of our weak points, but we've done a lot of work on optimizing that AOV. So that's been a real sort of focus of mine. Like, how do I take a product that's typically, $20 to $30 and have my AOV be $60, $70 with a good margin? And luckily enough, I've been able to do that, which is good. And we have a number of strategies, and we can talk through that today if you want. But, we can now get AOVs up to a level I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. All right, so you got your coffee, you got your product, you have found someone in Melbourne who can do it. What was the time frame, and then how did you get that first prototype in your hands?
Yeah, I think the time frame was probably 12 months from ideation to actually doing it. And part of that could just be me being nervous about pulling the trigger and, running sort of two other businesses at the same time. Like, do I really want to get my hand into this? So I did a lot of research. And when I say market research, it's like asking friends and family, do you think it's a good idea? But the problem with friends and family is they all say, of course, it's a great idea. So that's the worst market research. But what we did is we got a couple of samples and we started sending that out to people and getting their feedback. So we used neighbors, we used friends, and we did use family. And we sent out maybe 20 samples to different people and just asked for their feedback. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, but not just from the flavor and all that sort of stuff. They're like, this concept makes so much sense. And really, we do, probably the fifth thing that I wanted to try and overcome was like, can I solve a problem for people? And the difference with this coffee is it basically means you can have great coffee anywhere you are. So you can, and I used it last night on the plane when I went to Sydney. I had a coffee and I brought dosed on the plane, and I was able to, I asked the flight attendant, can I just have some hot water and some milk? And they looked at me quite funny. I said, but in separate cups. And then so there I was on the plane making my dosed coffee, and the plane, it was amazing. So I solved that problem. But that's what I found from the market research. People said, like, this is the most versatile product that we can use. We can use it when we go camping, if we go on holidays, and all those sorts of places. So the market research validated the idea.
G'day all, thanks for listening. Struggling to get your e-commerce brand noticed? At Remarkable Digital, we turn traffic into revenue. Just ask one of our clients who was spending 6 figures on ads but saw stagnant organic growth. Our elite team stepped in, optimized their on-page SEO, put together a great content strategy. The results? 1,994 keywords now ranked in the top 3 inside of 6 months. Want results like these? Visit remarkabledigital.com.au and let's make your brand truly remarkable. Back to the show.
Yeah. And then from there, it probably took about another 4 to 6 months of like branding, getting our ducks lined up and going to market with it.
Yeah, cool, mate. And branding wise, like how did you, because branding is so subjective and design, was that an expensive part to get that up and running, or did you try and kind of go bare minimal cost just to get something to market?
Probably in between. So I knew that it was important in this space because coffee is a saturated market, and because ours relies on, the measurement of the coffee into the cup, we wanted to call it something that, sort of represented that, which is why we call it dosed, because, one dose equals one shot of coffee. So we wanted to try and keep that together. So we went through a bit of branding exercise and interviewing a lot of branding people to find on. So we did invest quite a bit in branding actually on getting it right. And that was branding, not just from like logo design, but, we did like copy, we did, style guides, we did color palettes, we did bottle design and packaging design. So we did a lot of that up front just to get it right.
Yeah. Do you think looking back on that, was that an investment worthwhile?
Absolutely. Because what that means now is then when we do marketing or do any activation, we have the kit ready to go. We know exactly what we're trying to do. We know the language we're using. We know the tone. We know our archetypes. We know our avatars. We know everything, which means all we need to think about is strategy and tactics, which is that's my strength, the tactical strategic stuff. So I can just pick the product up and just apply like my strategies to it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was thinking like if you're trying to get something off the ground and you're not sure whether this product is actually going to work, when you're getting to starting to spend on branding, it can become quite expensive depending on who you use. But also, there's going to be a trade-off between like you actually do need to invest into something that's going to create a strong brand, because I'm always telling my clients or potential clients the biggest thing is your website, in terms of if you've got a good website, all your marketing works. If you've got a shit website, none of your marketing works. It's the same with sort of branding. If you skimp on branding and get something through ChatGPT or whatever, that potentially. What I'm trying to uncover is that if you had your time again, would you spend that same money on branding again this time around?
Yeah, I think I would. The reason is that now when people think about, coffee concentrate, we want them to think about dosed as being the right product for that, right? And that's the only thing they think about. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But I mean, that's something that we can work towards. It's a really strong color, strong brand, strong wording. So yeah, I think brand is important. And if you had to ask me, I reckon if you asked me this question on the first time we jumped on a podcast, I probably would have said the opposite answer. And I had a mentor once say to me that, brand doesn't pay the wages, Brendan, was what he said to me at one stage. And because tactical and strategy always does. But actually at the end of the day, I think when you have a higher brand awareness, your performance and your marketing will perform a lot better. And, you'll often see that if you see, say, one activewear brand, a coming up brand next to Nike, and they both have the exact same offering, which one are you going to buy, right? You're going to buy the Nike one because the brand sells it. So I think there is more value in brand that that I typically wouldn't have said. But now that everyone is on a level playing field from a performance marketing perspective, the only thing you've got that it's unique is your brand.
Yeah, it's such a good answer, and yeah, really, really great insight. I do agree with you. But yeah, it's that balancing act commercially. If you're trying to run a startup or you're starting off pretty lean and with not a lot of capital, how much you deploy. But I think you're right. You answered that beautifully. That branding is something that you shouldn't really be skimping on when you're wanting to build something long-term and sustainable. So the product lands, you've got something you're happy with. There's a bit of product market fit. You're ready to go. How do you get people aware of it? Now, this is your strength, but for all the listeners there that are in a similar sort of boat, how do you get more and more people aware of your brand when you're just starting out?
Yeah, we went down a content route, and the reason being, and that was probably another criteria I had. I've got all these extra criteria now about building the perfect e-commerce brand. Criteria was, is it photographable? Is it Instagrammable? Is it shareable? Was another sort of concept that I had. I wanted to make sure that you could do so much content with it. And so we went really hard on content, and we still do. Like, we'll be putting up, multiple pieces of content every single day. And our goal is just to get it flooded everywhere. Like, we're just flooded. Ours is a volume of content right now, so that, people are like, oh, I saw that on Instagram, I saw that on TikTok. And so we know that, audience is the new currency, and we wanted to make sure we got that attention. Content was just everything we went for. So the content was strategy number one. And the second one is get this in as many people's cups as possible. Like, that is my goal, is how can I get as many people as humanly possible tasting this product? Because we know that once they taste it, they're hooked and they're like, this is great, we love it. And they just come back and buy again. So we're not trying to make profit on the first order. Like, we just want to get it to people's hands as much as possible and get them to come back. So content and retention are our two sort of big plays on this. We haven't gone really hard on sort of performance marketing or anything like that. We definitely amplify our content, but ours is just about brand and awareness right now. We're sort of in that phase. Probably moving into this middle of funnel phase now, where we are capturing and nurturing them through email marketing. That's sort of the next part of it. And then our next phase will be, what's the bottom of funnel stuff look like? So the way I think about it is, over the next 12 months, we're just going to be in awareness nurture phase for the majority of it, while we build the brand as big as we can.
Yeah. And so that's really great insights again. So even when you're doing awareness, right, you're still getting sales through, but your focus is really kind of impressions, eyeballs, awareness, getting people aware of that product, because if they're not aware of it, they can't purchase it. And you've done that through content, mostly organic, social. Is that correct, in terms of reels, images, carousels, and TikTok?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all organic. We are doing paid now, but it is all predominantly organic content. Yeah, reels. We are doing like recipes and stuff now as well. We're doing TikTok, looking at launching YouTube channel shortly on it. So basically, it's a content first business is our goal for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was going to be my next question was, you do so well personally on YouTube. Is YouTube in your thinking, obviously being the second biggest search engine currently, is YouTube in your thinking with this e-commerce product?
It definitely is. Yeah, 100%. I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll have like a proper YouTube channel set up for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice one. All right. So we're starting to grow. How long have you been, I should have asked this at the start, but how long since you started the brand until today?
Started in October. I think October we made our first sale when we launched. So yeah, we've basically, 6 months now? So yeah, been running for about 6 months. It still feels brand new, 6 months. It's so interesting when you start a brand, you're like, I just want sales, I want to get it in there, I got to be profitable from day one. But I've had a different approach to this. I've thought about really long term, and I'm like, you know what, this building a brand takes time. So right now, this brand is literally a baby that's been born that is completely reliant on me and my team to stay alive, right? Otherwise, if we're not around, it dies. So I'm thinking about that right now, is like, okay, I'm still got this infant that's 6 months old that can't do anything for itself, and we're just going to grow it up over the years. And that has made me a bit more not complacent, but a bit more at ease with the ups and downs of launching a brand. It's like, okay, no, they're just an infant. They're going to have good days. They're going to have bad days. And then that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. So 6 months old, and yeah, it feels like it's just been born.
So you've got yourself another Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi, yeah, absolutely.
It's a really good way to look at it, though. I can even reflect on my own business with my agency. You think that sometimes you get frustrated. Why isn't things happening quicker? Or the same with an e-commerce business. Why are more people not purchasing? And we're getting all this attention, and people are noticing and are commenting and liking, but sales aren't coming through. But I think it's a really interesting insight, is to understand that it is an infant, and it is if you want to build something long term, then it takes a little bit longer at the base, like a skyscraper, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at a lot of the big brands that have grown over time, and I do a lot of research on brand history and how long they grow, a lot of them take 5 to 10 years to be a success, like before they get anywhere. And often we see this sort of like, we're not getting successful quick enough, and so we think it's a failure and we're quitting before we get there. But you look at Nike, you look at some of the sort of the D2C darlings that we have in Australia here, your LSKDs and your Who's Elijahs, they had a couple of years, if not longer than multiple years of grinding and getting it right. And eventually you have this tipping point that has the brand make it. But that's why I believe in working in a brand or creating a brand that you enjoy, because if you can work in it for free and not expect anything in return, but just because you enjoy it, then you'll outperform the competition, right? Because the person who's just doing it for money is not going to last the length of time that someone's doing it for passion and joy. So that's why it was really important to do something that I really like, because it means that even if it's not profitable for the next 1 to 2, 3 years, I still enjoy it, and it's like, it's fun and it's my child. I like it. Whereas if I was trying to just sell a widget just to make money, I'm going to give up pretty quickly. You'll just never outperform someone that's passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, really good call. With your infant business, and what is the tech stack that is supporting you? What have you've got access to all the different sort of software providers and platforms that to utilize from a performance space. What have you gone with now for Dosed?
Yeah, so we're using Shopify sort of as our e-commerce platform. And everyone knows Shopify. Why would we use it? Why wouldn't you use it? From an email marketing, we're using Klaviyo. We actually did try Shopify email for a little while, and that was more just for me having my little test kitchen, seeing how that worked. But it was just too clunky, too annoying, and I couldn't understand whether it was working or not. So we went to Klaviyo and have a look back. From a reviews standpoint, we're playing with Okendo right now, really liking that. That's a good little tool. And then, we use a lot of AI and ChatGPT in the background. From an ad perspective, we're using Meta ads, playing around in TikTok ads, doing a little bit of YouTube ads, but predominantly that's sort of our tech stack as it plays out.
Nice one. I was going to ask you, that's right, I was going to ask you. When you talk about ChatGPT and AI, we caught up last week. We ran into each other in the office, and you were showing me the latest ad that you've created through AI. Can you run us through your how you utilize sort of ChatGPT or AI for some social media ads that seem to be performing quite well at the moment?
Yeah, so with the latest update on ChatGPT, where you can create pretty much, really amazing images and graphics and things like that, just straight into the prompt. What I thought I would do is I'd create these images of people sort of holding my product so that I didn't have to use creators or influencers. So I created 4 or 5 of those little people, and then I put them into ChatGPT or OpenAI's Sora, which is the video generating tool. And I just basically said, make it look like this person is holding the coffee and really enjoying it, like it's the best thing they've got in their life. And so I did that to about 5 or 6 videos. I stitched them together, and they look, I think if you told someone that AI, they'd be like, oh yeah, that is AI. But if you didn't, like I think I showed you, and you're like, now you can see it's AI when you see it. But it's like, if you didn't know, you'd think it was real. So I've been using that. I turned it into sort of a short form, maybe 30-second reel. And I've been using that now in Meta ads. And it's actually working, which has been really powerful. These people don't exist. I created them in ChatGPT. I turned them into a video. I loaded them into Meta. And I it's just a broad campaign with this image in this video in here, and it's just like making sales. It's amazing.
Fantastic. I'm going to actually, if you can send that to me,
I will, man.
I'll put this on the screen so people can actually kind of have a bit of a look, and we'll give Dosed a free plug as well for people that want some coffee. But it's a really good test case of seeing what can be done with AI. As I said, you said, I just created this in AI, and I'm like, okay, I can see that it's generated in AI, but to be honest, if I was scrolling through Instagram, I wouldn't have thought twice that it was.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming more and more normal. But it's good to be able to use platforms like that these days and keep the costs low and still generate some revenue from it.
Yeah, well, because our business relies heavily on creators, so we have about 30 creators on our books that we send product to every month to create content for us.
Okay.
So we still rely on humans, absolutely. But I wanted to see is there a way that we can have an alternative or something that complements it so that we can just create things quickly on the fly? And that's sort of why I gave it a shot, and it sort of worked. And I thought I'll just test it on ads and put some money behind it, see what happens, and pleasantly surprised.
There you go. Very good. Test and learn.
Absolutely, man.
And what's your influencer strategy? How do you find them, and how do you get the best out of influencers? So
we don't typically use like influencers as the term implies. So influencers are people who have an audience that influence people, but we use creators. So we try and use sort of up and coming UGC creators. So they're people who are more than happy just to trade product for content. So we don't pay any of our creators right now. We just give them give them product. So the way we do is we just do manual outreach, and we search for UGC creators on Instagram and TikTok, and we outreach to them and ask if they want to be part of our program. We get a pretty good hit rate. Some do, some don't. And that's gone pretty well. But what tends to happen is when you start creating content and having lots of creators, eventually they start reaching out to you. And so that's now what we're getting. We're getting inbound requests for creators, and that's been really, really powerful. And we have a bit of a system in place now that we create a brief every month for our creators. It goes out to our little creator community. And then so once a month, they send us back content that is themed to our brief so that we can have like a marketing plan around that content. And then, all our content is relatively consistent, but with different creators doing a similar thing. And we've just sort of employed that over the last sort of 2 months. And it's been really a lot more well received than just sort of sending product and saying, please make us some content. We're giving them some guidelines to make it. And then that content's performing a lot better.
Okay, fantastic. Now, mate, if we sit here in 12 months' time and talking about Dosed again, where do you think you'll be at, and what do you think is the biggest challenge facing growing an e-commerce business for the next 12 months?
I think we will be in a lot better position. I think we'll have a few more products. So we released an original flavor coffee. We've just released a vanilla flavor. We've got some demand for other flavors. So probably have a couple more flavors in there. I think we will probably be in a similar position in terms of the challenges. It's actually just awareness, to be honest. And how do you cut through the noise of content? If you think about, we consume so much content, no matter what it is, whether it's, retail-led content or educational content or entertainment content. It's like, how do we win the eyeballs of people who have a short attention span? Right. So that's sort of the part is like, how do we just get more awareness, and what strategy are we going to do that? So right now we're playing in Meta and Facebook. Does that look like it'll be in the future? Maybe there's YouTube, maybe there's more TikTok, maybe there's a new platform, but really our focus is purely going to be on, what is it? Attention is the new currency. So it's about how do we get as much attention as possible. So whether that is offline events, whether that is sponsorships, whether that is more these top of funnel stuff is where we're playing, not the bottom, like I said, not bottom of funnel. So yeah, that's probably what it looks like for us.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So give us a 30-second clip on just Dosed anyway. Like, why would people buy Dosed when they can buy regular coffee beans? What's the use? You mentioned on the airplane, on a trip, you mentioned camping, you mentioned it. I think I've seen some content around cocktails and espresso martinis. Give Dosed a bit of a plug.
So it's the easiest way to make real coffee wherever you are. So if you think about the alternatives are like a pod machine where you need to have a machine with you to make a pod, and you've got a lot of waste that goes with it. If you think about an espresso machine, you got to grind the beans, you got to pull the espresso. You can't do that anywhere. You go to a cafe, but coffees are about $7.50 each. You can use an AeroPress, but it's all just really messy. You can literally make a cafe latte in like 30 seconds using this that tastes just as good as a cafe, rather than but just think of it like having a cafe quality coffee, but in an instant. It's sort of like instant coffee, but cafe quality. It's pure. It's pretty amazing. It's a hard one to explain because it's just so different. It's so unique. So I highly recommend people give it a shot. And if you join our website and sign up to my email list, you'll get $5 off your first order. So I had to play that plug in there for you, Ryan, because, you got a big audience. They're going to buy the coffee.
Especially stuff that tastes like it should be in a cafe. Do they need anything else? Do they need a milk frother? What do they need? Tell us, what do? You keep in the fridge?
Yep. So you can make any type of coffee. You can have like with milk, without milk, with vodka, without vodka, whatever you want to do. So you can use a milk frother. So we even sell a little milk frother, hand milk frother that you can do to froth your milk to put it in there if you want to make a latte. If you want to make an iced coffee, you just need milk. Once it's opened, it can go in the fridge. If you don't open it, it actually lasts like 9 months on the shelf. So you don't need to worry about it either. So it's so versatile, great to go in a suitcase, great to have at your office. A lot of people take it to work with them because, you've just got those work pod machines that just taste like dirt, or you have to go to the cafe, which, if you spend thousands of dollars a year on cafe coffee if you were like I used to be, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. No, you don't get any change out of $7.50 here in Melbourne or in South Melbourne anyway.
No.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love people to jump on and try some of Brendan's coffee, and then tag eCommerce Australia and Dosed into the and who knows, you might be the next creator for Dosed.
Absolutely, 100%.
Appreciate the insights there, mate. You just come back from Sydney. Obviously, I can't let you go without just sharing some e-commerce nuggets of gold for our community. You just come back from a recent Klaviyo event in Sydney. Tell us what the theme was there. How are people finding e-commerce? What are Klaviyo saying? What are some of the takeaways that you got from the event?
Yeah, it was a really, really good event. There's about 350 people there, either brand owners, industry reps, and things like that. And really what they were doing was showing us what their roadmap was for the next sort of 12 months in Klaviyo. And a lot's changed probably since, they listed on the IPO, they listed on the stock exchange, 12, 18 months ago. I'm not sure on the exact date, but since doing that, they obviously got a lot of investment and they're clearly investing in the product because the product is evolving really fast. So there's sort of three main categories they spoke about. The first one was doubling down on marketing, which is what they're famous for. So that's, email, that's SMS, it's other chat platforms. It's just making sure that marketing experience is a lot better and making the automation a lot easier. So one of the big ones was, the way you create campaigns. We're going to do a better job of that. So you can basically think about campaigns and flows coming together and having a baby. That's sort of what they're creating. The second thing that they're releasing is, like a service platform where you can do like customer service chats and you can do, ticketing systems and inboxes and everything like that. So that's going to be a really powerful thing. And then the other one is about like, how do you amplify the customer connection between your site and the customer? So if you think about Klaviyo, they have a lot of, they have all the data that everyone needs, everything. So they track everything on your site. They track what the customer does. They know from their first purchase, their last purchase. So I think they're going to look at ways of how do they surface that to the customer and the brand in an easy to use way, like they're calling it the customer hub. So that'll be really interesting. And then the last part is improving the analytics is the last thing they really talked about is like, how do you use the analytics to really leverage your business? Because they've got all this data, but they're not presenting it very well. So, think RFM analysis, think, turning segments based on people's behavior in using AI, creating campaigns at the back of that. So it's just it's just gonna become a really solid platform, I think, over the next it's gone just from being, a batch and blast type email platform to being this hyper sophisticated personalized platform is what the sizzle they sold me, mate. I drank the Kool-Aid and we're good to go.
Yeah, nice. Oh yeah, you did say that there was like a huge crowd there and Klaviyo did things extremely well, as I would imagine that they would do. What how are your students going? Do you call them students? Are they students the right word? How
we call them members, but they're students. They're learning as well. So absolutely, you can call them students.
How are the members going inside the e-commerce academy? How would you sum up the brands? How they're growing and what's working for them? Is search working? Is ChatGPT? Are they starting to see some traffic from ChatGPT? Is paid ads expensive? Like, what's the kind of overarching view of 2025 so far?
There's no real one thing that we can put our finger on. I think brands that do everything in a holistic approach and think about each channel has a purpose in the funnel. I think that's what we're seeing works really well. Those that just focus on one channel start to lose a little bit. What we're finding is brands that are really trying to make sure that they're consistent across a number of channels has been a lot better. So definitely people that are using SEO and just continue to refining, that's been really good for sort of that organic reach that goes well. People that are pushing their content is going really, really well. And then people that are, using sort of paid ads, but all of those sort of incongruency has been really good as long as they underpin it with sort of this nurture type content. So that was a really broad answer, but basically you should be doing a bit of everything to stay relevant because everyone touches you at different points and not one person's going to see a meta ad and then buy your product, right? But what might happen is, let's just say they see Dosed as a product and they look at it and they go, okay, that's great, really cool, coffee concentrate. They click the ad on Meta, my AI ad, and then they go through to my website. And then if I don't do anything with them there, they just forget about me and they forget who it was. And they forgot, what was that brand? Was it dosing? Was it dancing? And they might forget it and that no one ever remembers it. So our goal is to make sure that we continue to convert them through the funnel. So the brands that are doing well are the ones that are thinking about the entire customer journey and where they come from. And that comes right down to SEO because that person might be like instant coffee liquid. They might be typing in like chat and then their search result comes up because they forgot what the ad was that they saw or the Instagram reel they saw or the TikTok live that they saw. So I think brands that do a bit of everything are the ones that are performing really, really well. The ones that aren't performing well are the ones that are looking for quick fixes. And we absolutely see that time and time again, that they get into stress crisis mode and they just try and be like, I need a silver bullet. And silver bullets are usually just a big discount and we can do that to get you by for a while, but it doesn't get you by for a long time. So hope that answers your question on what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think like attribution, I see a lot of brands that are trying to attribute what's working and what's not. Like, is my SEO working or is my Google ads working or, Meta, we're not getting the ROAS there. Do you think that's the right word? Do you think it's dangerous to just kind of look at the attribution per channel, or is that still important to understand what's working and what's not? I think, as you said, search is not linear, so they might go to ChatGPT, it might recommend 3 or 4 different products, and they go to Google, then they look at your socials. Like there's so many touch points. It's really hard to say that one channel is the only channel you should be performing in, which is kind of what your answer was. But do you think we get stuck on attribution too much?
I do think we get stuck on attribution too much, definitely. I look at, when I measure the success of a business, I look at the overall, a little bit like an MER on a business, right? Your marketing efficiency ratio. And you could look at an MER. I look at it depending on the brand, but I look at like a cost per acquisition. Like how much did it cost for me to acquire that customer? And what's the value of that customer over a long-term period? And, if it cost me $50 to acquire a customer, and over the next 12 months, that customer's going to be worth $300 to me. That's a good buy, right? I bought $300 for $50. So I think about it as like an exchange of money. It's like, okay, well, if you're selling me customers for $50 and I know they're going to be worth $300 to me, I'll buy as many customers as I can. So that's sort of how I think about that. But I look at it overall, not at like an independent channel. So let's just say you make $10,000 in one day and it costs you $1,000 in marketing, right? And I don't know how many customers that are. I'm not going to do maths on the fly, but you're like, well, would I just keep paying that to get more and more customers because I know what they're worth long time? So your customer lifetime value. That's sort of how I look at it at an overarching perspective. The second to that is attribution, which is the question. Yes, you should look at each channel, but probably look at them their own metrics. Meta as an example, we look at frequency, cost per click, cost per million, like seeing whether or not those metrics make sense and whether we're willing to pay that much for those things, or whether it's a top of funnel, bottom of funnel style ad. We look at where traffic's coming from. But yeah, as a short, quicker answer is like, absolutely don't get obsessed with attribution. And also don't change your strategy too soon is probably the second thing. I look at a lot of sort of purchase funnels where it's like when the person first interacted with the brand to when they purchased is actually longer than a lot of people think. I've seen this one, even on my store, we're seeing like 17 days from someone from they first interact to when they buy, yet we're judging our ads on a 2 or 3 day period. It's like, that makes no sense, right? When someone first interacted with the ad, but the average time to purchase is 14 days, 20 days. Like you can't judge an ad if the purchase isn't going to happen for another time. So attribution, I think, is important, but you shouldn't obsess over it.
Yeah. It's a good, it's just an important lesson and something that I'm noticing a lot in 2025. And the conversations I have within our own agencies, they might be saying, oh, this isn't working or that isn't working, or, one part of it is not working, when in fact, you should be doing it all, and you should be doing it all as well as you can. But obviously, everyone's got time commitments and budget restraints and things like that. But the more you can kind of do social SEO content, YouTube, it all helps.
Yeah, I think what's hard for business owners is they just want to do one. And I think the old days was you could just do one thing and it worked. But now, because attention is the currency and not everyone's on the same platform, you have to be across them. So, it's not easy. Business isn't easy. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? But everyone thinks that they'll always look for the easy way out. But if you just put in the time and do the work and just be consistent, success is guaranteed. That's what I think.
Love it, mate. That's the best way to wrap up the podcast. Jump on and check out Dosed. It's .co, isn't it? Dosed.
Yep. It's getdosed.co.
Getdosed.co. I should have done my research. Mate, thanks for joining us. Appreciate all the insights into your latest venture in growing this brand. And as I said, give Brendan a follow on YouTube and give this podcast a follow while you're at it.
Good to catch you up, mate.
Thank you, mate.